Hello and welcome to HYPIA Interviews. I am President HYPIA, Dr. Usman Chohan, and today we're doing one of our special AI series managed by the advisor on AI at HYPIA, Ewa Duerr. And with her, we have a special guest today, Dr. Diyi Yang. So I want to welcome both of them just for presentation's sake. Dr. Diyi is in the computer science department and as an associate professor at Stanford, and one of her areas of interest in her publications is natural language processing, and she has published extensively and been highly cited in the field of AI. So we look forward to this conversation between two accomplished ladies, and I'm just here to observe, really. So it's over to you, Ewa and Diyi. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Usman. It's always a huge honor and pleasure to talk about how AI can really impact language learning and cultural understanding. And here I'm truly honored as well to have Diyi Yang from Stanford that is doing a lot of research in that area. But before we talked about the research that he is engaged in on AI and how AI is impacting the language understanding and cultural understanding overall, she has a really, really impressive background that truly speaks to her research from personal life. And can you talk about your life in general and what led you to actually do the research bridging between AI and the language understanding, the cultural understanding?
Yeah, of course. First, thank you for having me here. Very happy to share our research. I actually really like this question because I think part of the reason why I start to work on what I'm working on right now is actually a story of how I get to know language, get to know culture, etc. So, very briefly, I work on natural language processing. That is making computers understand and can generate a natural language. And this actually started when I first moved to US for my graduate school. Back in undergrad, I was doing a lot of just computer science and math. And when I came to US, especially in my process of learning English, I realized that there are a lot of different aspects of language, culture, and also just identity. And another aspect is that we have students from all over the world into the same classroom. And the way how people speak, the way how people communicate, and you see a lot of interesting aspects, such as politeness, festivals, the way how they express confidence, etc. I think all of them are very fascinating. And it also led me to kind of realize that language is not only just about words, grammar that we study in textbook, it's also about people and how people shape the language and the evolution associated with it.
Absolutely. I can truly associate that with that statement as well myself, having now started learning one of the Asian languages, Japanese as well. This really speaks the structure of the language and the characters, kanji or hiragana, katakana, and in your case, the Chinese character, Mandarin Chinese. Obviously, they are very different from what we are used to in even European languages or in English. So it speaks deeply about the culture, how people think. And that leads me to the second question. You have done a ton of research over the years in that area, how AI is impacting cultural understanding and natural language processing. Talk us through your research areas and your projects that you have done recently.
Okay, yeah. So this is a very big topic. I think language and culture are interrelated in many ways. So I want to share one, but I guess it may be just like two representative works. One is about language and the people. So this is actually about English, since now we are talking about language. And when I first work on English natural language processing of teaching computers to understand English, we actually realized that English is not only just like one language. If you think about people, even in United States, living in different states like New York, California, Los Angeles, Chicago, Atlanta, you probably notice that there are regional variations where people may pick up terms differently or may emphasize different aspects of a word, etc. And sometimes we just call them dialects. They are not only just like certain kind of patterns, it has been systematically in the usage. And very interestingly, I think a few years ago when we built language technologies, we assumed that let's just train models with textbooks, with New York Times, a lot of this kind of very standardized sources. But then you realize that models actually do not work out very well when it comes to specific regions, especially for some kind of high-stake scenarios. Because maybe they don't understand like how people speak Black English or how people speak Chicano English or how people speak Hong Kong English, Singapore English, etc. So, and then we start to think about like, can we make sure that even for English NLP, which we already think that it's somewhat solved with an accuracy of 98 or something for most of the data sets, maybe we can make it happen for other type of dialects that people speak within English. And also this issue is not only just within US. If you think about the broader space, like in Nigeria, UK, or different parts of the world who speak English, I think this is the common issue. So to do that, we basically build linguistic resources that we document those kind of data points so that we can perform like language processing on top of those benchmarks. And not only that, because a while ago, the large language models, they are trained with online internet data. So they may not recognize those specific dialects very well. So we have been doing a lot of parameter efficient fine tuning that if we only teach LLMs with a small amount of data from a specific region, can we make sure they understand the dialect well? So that's like a lot of work we have been doing. One theme that will lead me to the second brief highlight is throughout this process, I actually really believe that we need to get local people involved in the process, where from a methodology perspective, we call it co-design or participatory design. That is, people's voice matter. And this is something that I think sometimes get I guess it get ignored when we develop models because we always think it's just an algorithm issue. But then by the end of the day, it's people who use those technologies and produce data in the very first place. The second one is more related to culture. So when we work on this kind of language variations, we also realize that in addition to this kind of grammar patterns, there is also deeply culture-related social norms, behaviors, expectations. So using like tipping as one example, the tipping culture in US, in Asia, or even in Europe are so different. If you ask the question like, hey, I'm in Germany, how should I tip? You probably do not want to receive a very US-centric answer. And this also has a lot of implications if you take into account religion and other aspects. So now we are working on how to make sure large language models technologies are aware of diverse cultures, especially cultures that are not very well represented on the internet. So one of the system we built is called culture cartography, where we actually build a tool where local people can interact with the tool to document their cultural knowledge, to make changes to what the models think today, etc. And we have worked with people from Indonesia and Nigeria to kind of collect the local social norms and a lot of the knowledge related to their culture from this kind of bottom-up approach. And surprisingly, we found that even like the state-of-art models like GPT-4 are one, like a lot of the reasoning models actually struggle when it comes to this kind of data points contributed by local users. So I think the theme across the two studies is we really need to kind of take into account culture and a lot of the language variation because this is how we can make systems really work.
I cannot agree. And having worked in that technology as well and bridging all those gaps, cultural gaps, You mentioned local, but as well, this not only applies to geographic, but as well to certain communities and so on and so forth. So having that human in the loop, as we call, and having that interaction between the human and AI, it's what makes it so fascinating. But you touched upon a couple of challenges already in training models and using AI. We in our personal, so to speak, conversation, we also talked about biases, potential hallucinations. How are you dealing with that? And are you seeing other challenges that I haven't mentioned so far?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a great aspect to consider, especially when we think about how to move forward with responsibility. Um, One aspect actually before all of those issues is just like how would you quantify issues in the models? Because like sometimes we just use the system without knowing that it has problems. So I think the first big challenge is actually how to quantify and identify those potential issues and risk. You already gave several really good examples around hallucination. Hallucination means that when models probably don't know, they fake a response, or maybe they were not able to find the correct response, and then instead they return something that's not very relevant. And then bias means that the models may not know specific community. As a result, it gave some kind of hallucinating answer. One very interesting example I have related to culture is so if you think about large language models, there is this component called the reward model that they assign a reward to different response so that the response with the highest reward will be shared with users. And then we ask a very simple question, a benign question: where are you from? So where are you from is very benign. And we ask a model, and we force the model to answer with Japan, US, Canada, China, different countries in the world. And then we can see what type of reward that models give to this different response. And when you plot them on a global map, you see very, very concerning disparity, where when models answer US and Canada, it actually has very high reward, which means that internally models think those countries are great. I mean, they are great, but like from a score perspective for where are you from? And if for other kind of countries, you receive relative lower reward. So it's a very like split disparity. So this is what I mean by measurement, by quantification. In order to work on those issues, we need to find some technical approach to kind of quantify, are those models fair to different demographic groups? Are those models fair to different communities, to people even think about like older adults or other vulnerable populations? Can they give the same utility when people who are vulnerable compared to just like everyday internet users? So I think like the hallucination and the bias have a broader range of issues. And this is even not only just in terms of everyday like chit chat ish queries, but think about healthcare, education, legal, and a lot of other domains. So in order to deal with this, I think quantification is what I think is the most important first step. And then I think the next step is that how would you mitigate those issues? I think the research community have come up with different methodologies. So one of them is called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, where when models are generating content, you let them search for external database, external news source, etc., so that we want to reduce hallucination through that way. Or maybe we want to make sure that this kind of equal utility for different groups are part of the objective that we want to optimize. So there are different approach people are thinking about. But I think like quantification and mitigation are two big challenges today.
Cannot agree more. What you measure, you control. And I think in that fast-moving environment of AI, we are still figuring out as the technology is moving with that. And on that final question, I know we all don't have a magic ball, but where is the future? This space is moving so fast, but if you had a magic ball, where would you say AI is going to make impact in cultural understanding and language understanding? Maybe in the short term, because a little bit about the mid and long term, it's difficult to predict with the fast moving AI technology, but what's the future is gonna bring, and then do you have any ideas of the next research that you want to jump on to foster cultural understanding through AI?
Yeah, I like this question. Although I don't think I have a great solution or answer, it's always very, very hard to predict the future.
Yes.
I guess just to immediately follow up on what I shared so far, I think to me, I truly believe that we need to build technologies that can serve all. And this includes understanding culture, etc. So one thing that I hope, and I think that this is going to be very promising, is that how we could give everyone, give the community the tool so that they can build technologies for them. So to kind of unpack it a little bit, I think sometimes when we try to like, hey, we want to make AI like more capable for your community, and there will be pushbacks because some people may want to preserve their culture in their own ways, and digital or like putting them into AI may not be the best solution for them. So by the end of the day, I think this really needs to be a community-centered choices where community want to build the models for themselves, and we can provide tools, provide best practices so that they can be part of this to build the tools for themselves. This is where I think the future of like culturally aware natural language processing should be. And then in order to do that, I think first is what type of tools that we can build so that stakeholders, community members, they want to use it or they are interested in using it. One of the recent effort we did is with the Hawaiian community, where my students actually went there and did a lot of co-design sessions with locals to figure out like what type of knowledge you want to preserve, what type of queries you often use, any concerns you have, etc. And then we can turn those into some insights to kind of inspire or inform our tool design. Back to the earlier cultural cartography tool. So right now we only partnered with like 2 countries where we work with locals to collect those social norms or cultural norms. The way how we do it is that we basically use an audio-based interface where people do not need to tap because typing is not accessible in many places. So they can just talk to our systems. They were just like, oh, like for our festivals, this is how we usually do with our grandparents, etc. Or this is the situation. So we want to make sure the tool is easily usable and friendly for local people so that they can actually be the active force in the process. And I think along this kind of future looking, there also has been a lot of great efforts where local communities are building their own language technologies, building their own data sets, building their own models, and also building their own evaluations and applications. I think only through this, I would see that it's going to be kind of promising and sustainable. Otherwise, I think there is always this kind of normative judge that external might bring into the process. Really, I feel like, or I hope that this is going to be a truly collaborative process where researchers in academia industry can work with locals to help make our kind of current models more aware of those cultural content. Very briefly, I think in addition to language technology that we talk about today, I think the physical world is also something very interesting. If we think about images or even videos, all of those modality are going to make this culture understanding more comprehensive.
Cannot agree more. And myself as well, working with, let's say, multimodal foundational models as well, Gemini in that case, that's really the future. And what you said about decentralizing the building experience in the agentic AI agent era. I think that's becoming more and more tangible, and the way we build AI agents and AI technology is becoming easier and more accessible. So that's the future that I am aspiring to as well. And on that note, thank you so much for sharing all of that with our community. And I look forward to making even more impact in the future together with such experts as you in the area of AI and language understanding and cultural understanding. Thank you. Usman, over to you.
Thank you so much. I found this to be a very, very interesting conversation. I really appreciate the work that Dr. Diyi is doing. You know, in this book, Critical Polyglot Studies, which is the textbook for our community, for HYPIA, there are two forces we identified as being very, very important that crush communities. One is ethno-nationalism, so the nation state crushes communities, and then the economic forces of neoliberalism also crush communities. There's a third force now that we are covering through this special series under your guidance, Ewa, and that is AI. But then there is a solution to this, which is basically what these practitioner work is doing, plus the guidance she's given on community driven. So her work technologically is the platform. It helps enable things to happen, but then community initiatives work to push against this force. The same is true, the same community-driven initiative is true against neoliberalism and against ethno-nationalism. So actually we are enhancing our understanding of our work thanks to conversations like this. So thank you to both of you for that wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And on that happy note, I hope that the viewers and the listeners enjoy this conversation. We're certainly going into new fields and learning from the best out there. So thank you everybody for listening.